The scandal hiding beneath the Giza Pyramids. What if I told you the most explosive archaeological announcement of the decade just vanished overnight? Seriously, poof. One day, it's front-page news. The next, it's a whisper in the digital wind. Back in March 2025, a European Egyptian team stood before a global audience, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward, and made a claim so audacious it sent shockwaves through the academic world and beyond. They declared they had radar proof, undeniable, they said, of a sprawling lost city, a metropolis larger than Manhattan, nestled directly beneath the legendary Giza Pyramids. Imagine that. A city, hidden for millennia, waiting patiently under one of humanity's most iconic landmarks. But here's where it gets truly wild. Within just 48 hours, the entire narrative flipped. Egyptian authorities swooped in, freezing all the data. The triumphant press conference video, gone from YouTube, scrubbed clean, and every major news outlet, which had been buzzing with the story just hours before, suddenly went deafeningly quiet. It was as if a collective, unspoken agreement had been reached to simply erase the event. So, what happened? Did this team actually stumble upon the mythical Hall of Records, a pre-flood metropolis that would shatter our understanding of ancient history? Or was it all just a desert mirage, a grand illusion? And perhaps the most intriguing question of all, why are respected scientists now fiercely divided, some hailing it as the discovery of the century, while others are quick to label the whole thing the hoax of the century? This isn't just about old stones. It's about secrets, science, and the uncomfortable truth that sometimes silence speaks louder than any announcement. Section 1. The Bombshell Scan. Let's rewind a bit, shall we? Picture this. The 12th of March 2025. The sun beats down on the Giza Plateau, just as it has for thousands of years. But today, something's different. Physicist Corrado Malanga and radar engineer Filippo Biondi aren't there for the usual tourist snapshots. They've brought serious hardware. We're talking a truck-sized antenna array, positioned strategically about 200 meters south of the enigmatic Sphinx. This wasn't some off-the-shelf, hobbyist kit you'd find online. This was cutting-edge, military-grade stuff. They weren't just passively listening to echoes. They were actively firing ultra-wideband radar pulses deep into the earth. These pulses, powerful enough to penetrate up to 90 meters of solid rock and sand, were designed to reveal what lay hidden beneath the surface. Then came the magic. As the data streamed in, it wasn't just raw noise. An advanced AI, specifically trained for this kind of geological analysis, went to work, cancelling out interference and refining the signals. And within a matter of hours, a picture began to emerge on their screens. Not a fuzzy, ambiguous blob, but a clear, intricate lattice of walls, corridors, and clusters of chambers. This wasn't a small cave or a forgotten burial shaft. This was massive. We're talking something stretching an astonishing 6,500 feet. That's roughly 10 Great Pyramids of Khufu, laid end to end. Think about that scale for a moment. The team then took their findings a step further. They overlaid their subsurface radar map with historical satellite imagery. And what they saw was uncanny. The outline of their subterranean discovery matched a shape that had been glimpsed in grainy 1,930 seconds aerial photos of Giza. A curious pattern of right-angled streets, what looked like possible harbor quays, and even something resembling a slipway. It suggested a planned, structured environment, not just a random geological anomaly. The excitement was palpable. The very next day, at a packed conference in Cairo, Biondi, barely containing his enthusiasm, announced to the world, "We have never seen a subsurface image this clean outside of Tut's tomb." The room, filled with journalists, archaeologists, and curious onlookers, erupted. The news spread like wildfire, and within minutes, Twitter was ablaze, with number Giza Underworld trending globally for 6 straight hours. It felt like the dawn of a new era for Egyptology, a moment when the sands of time were finally giving up their most closely guarded secret. The sheer audacity of the claim, backed by seemingly solid scientific data, had captured the world's imagination. Everyone, it seemed, wanted to believe. Section 2. Why experts split overnight. But as often happens with discoveries of this magnitude, the honeymoon period was incredibly short-lived. By dawn the very next day, the backlash had already begun, swift and brutal. The academic community, initially taken aback by the suddenness and scale of the announcement, quickly found its voice, and it wasn't a voice of unanimous praise. Mamdouh al-Damati, a former minister of antiquities and a formidable figure in Egyptian archaeology, wasted no time in publicly dismissing the claims. He told Al-Ahram, Egypt's prominent newspaper, that the findings were utterly baseless without a single trench opened. His point was clear. Fancy radar images are one thing, but until a shovel hits the dirt and physical evidence is unearthed, it's all just speculation. And he wasn't alone. Geophysicist Dr. Rosa Lasaponara, an expert in ground-penetrating radar herself, weighed in with a crucial technical caveat. She pointed out that radar depth readings in dry, porous limestone, exactly the geology of the Giza Plateau, can be notoriously unreliable. A 2-meter thick wall, she explained, could easily appear to be 20 meters deep if the porosity of the surrounding rock was off, leading to significant misinterpretations of size and depth. It's like trying to judge the depth of a swimming pool when the water is murky. You might be completely wrong. Meanwhile, the official channels of the Egyptian Archaeological Council issued a terse, almost dismissive statement. No excavation permit has been requested or granted. This wasn't just bureaucracy, it was a powerful, understated message. The translation for anyone paying attention was stark. Extraordinary images, yes, but absolutely zero official confirmation or authorization for further investigation. Without that permit, any talk of an underground city was, officially, just talk. And then the online forums, those bustling hubs of expert and amateur opinion, lit up with skepticism. On Reddit's Ask Anthropology thread, flared archaeologists, meaning verified professionals in the field, raised a particularly unsettling point. They suggested that the AI filter used by Malanga and Biondi, while sophisticated, could have a significant flaw. What if, they mused, the AI had been trained on known ancient Egyptian temple floor plans and architectural blueprints? In such a scenario, the AI, designed to identify patterns, could inadvertently create a feedback loop, essentially hallucinating what it expected times to see based on its training data. It would be like an artist, told to draw a cat, inadvertently drawing whiskers even if they weren't explicitly there in the reference image. The AI, in its eagerness to find order, might have been imposing it. Within a week, the word pseudoscience began trending even louder than the initial announcement. The dream of a hidden city was rapidly turning into a nightmare of scientific doubt and professional acrimony. The initial euphoria had given way to a chilling sense of suspicion, and the scientific community was now bracing for a protracted battle over pixels versus proof. Section 3. The Big Void Warm-Up. Funny enough, if you've been following the mysteries of Giza, you might feel a peculiar sense of déjà vu. We have in fact been here before. This isn't the first time Giza has thrown up a monumental, invisible secret, only to have it immediately shrouded in debate. Cast your mind back to 2017. That's when a project called Scan Pyramids, utilizing cutting-edge muon detectors, essentially cosmic ray sensors, announced a remarkable discovery within the Great Pyramid itself. They found a massive 30-meter-long big void, situated directly above the Grand Gallery, a major passageway within the pyramid. Now, here's the crucial difference. Nobody, not even the most seasoned skeptics, denies the existence of that void. It was peer-reviewed, published in the prestigious journal Times Nature *, and the data was robust. The technology, muon tomography, is well established for detecting density changes within large structures. The problem, then as now, wasn't whether it exists *, but what it is *. We know it's there, but we can't get into it. Some engineers, ever the pragmatists, argue it's simply a stress-relieving spacer, a clever architectural feature designed to lighten the load on the Grand Gallery below. Others, more romantically inclined, insist that only something of immense significance, perhaps a previously undiscovered royal burial chamber or a treasure trove, could justify such a monumental, inaccessible volume within the pyramid. The debate rages on, even today. And that, my friends, is precisely the same fight echoing right now, only scaled up dramatically. Instead of a single, albeit massive chamber, we're talking about an alleged city. The fundamental question remains the same. What are we looking at? Is it a man-made structure, a natural formation, or something else entirely? But there's a vital distinction here that separates the Big Void from the Giza underworld. The muon data from 2017, the evidence for that Big Void, was replicated by Time's 3 independent teams, Times using different detection methods. This multi-layered verification lends immense credibility to the finding. The 2025 radar data, on the other hand, the data claiming an entire subterranean city. So far, it has not been independently replicated, not even once. And in the world of science, especially when making extraordinary claims, independent verification isn't just a nicety, it's the gold standard. Without it, even the most compelling images remain. For many, just that. Images. Section 4. Enter the legends. Of course, it wasn't just mainstream archaeologists and geophysicists weighing in. The moment the news of the alleged Giza underworld broke, the ancient astronaut theorists and alternative history enthusiasts didn't just walk in, they practically leapt into the fray, seconds after the announcement. And who can blame them? This kind of discovery is precisely what they've been talking about for decades. They quickly reminded everyone, and trust me, they love times to remind everyone, that Plato, the ancient Greek philosopher, spoke of a lost civilization, a highly advanced society wiped out some 9,000 years ago. And then there's Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, who famously predicted that a hall of records, a repository of humanity's true history, lay hidden somewhere between the Sphinx and the Nile, waiting to be rediscovered. Suddenly, these long-held alternative theories weren't just theories. They seemed to have found a potential physical manifestation. The internet, as it always does, went into overdrive. Podcasters, those tireless purveyors of niche theories and passionate opinions, were already selling hoodies emblazoned with Giza Underground City in stylized hieroglyphs within hours. It was a marketing goldmine built on pure speculation and the tantalizing possibility of a world-changing secret. Even Graham Hancock, the hugely influential author and proponent of a lost Ice Age civilization, threw his considerable weight behind the announcement. He tweeted, with characteristic gravitas, "If confirmed, this rewrites human history." That single quote, shared and reshared, racked up an astonishing 2.4 million impressions. And this, ironically, pushed mainstream scholars even further into lockdown mode. Why? Because the last thing they want, the absolute last thing, is to have their cautious, nuanced, and scientifically grounded statements weaponized and twisted to boost clicks for ancient alien theories or sensationalist documentaries. The moment a respected academic even hints at an anomaly, it can be instantly co-opted and spun into proof of extraterrestrial involvement or a hyper-advanced pre-Diluvian civilization. For mainstream archaeology, which prides itself on verifiable evidence and rigorous methodology, this kind of association is anathema. It cheapens their work and undermines their credibility. So, they retreat, they go silent, or they issue terse denials, often to the frustration of a public eager for more dramatic answers. The legends had arrived, and with them, a whole new layer of complexity, suspicion, and outright hostility between different ways of understanding the past. Section 5. The Wall of Silence. Okay, this is where the story truly stops being about ancient secrets and starts feeling like a modern-day thriller. Because after the initial fanfare and the subsequent backlash, something even stranger happened. Everything went quiet. And not just a little quiet, but an unsettling, almost orchestrated silence that felt profoundly unnatural. The raw radar files, the very data that supposedly proved the existence of this massive underground city, were slated for public release. They were supposed to be uploaded to Zenodo, a reputable open-access server specifically designed for sharing research data. The Digital Object Identifier, DOI link, the permanent address for the data, was even announced. But guess what? That link never went live. Not a single byte of the raw data ever appeared. It was as if the data itself had vanished into the ether. Then came the next curious development. The team's university bio pages, which had proudly showcased the press release and their involvement in this groundbreaking discovery, quietly scrubbed all mention of it. Poof. Gone. It was as if the event had never happened, a collective amnesia settling over their academic profiles. And if you thought that was odd, consider this. Egyptian state television had scheduled a high-profile roundtable discussion, a major event to dissect the findings with experts. That, too, was abruptly cancelled, without explanation. The silence grew louder. A French journalist, tenacious and skeptical, sought official comment from the Egyptian Archaeological Council. He told me via email that after repeated attempts, he finally received a brief, almost curt reply, "Kindly wait for the proper channels." And then, just like that, they ghosted him for 3 weeks. No further explanation, no clarification, just radio silence. You really don't need a tinfoil hat or a degree in conspiracy theories to notice when both sides, the discoverers and the authorities, suddenly stop talking. When that happens, especially after such a monumental announcement, it usually means something far bigger than just a few pottery shards is rattling around. It suggests intense pressure, perhaps embarrassment, or maybe even a deliberate strategy to control a narrative that spiraled wildly out of control. The wall of silence wasn't just a lack of information, it was information in itself, painting a picture of a situation far more complex and politically charged than a simple archaeological debate. Section 6. Could tech trick us? All right, let's get a little nerdy for 60 seconds, but I promise it'll be worth it. Understanding the tech behind this alleged discovery is crucial to understanding the skepticism. We're talking about ground-penetrating radar, or GPR. Here's the simplified version. A GPR unit sends out electromagnetic waves, typically in the 50 to 900 megahertz range, into the ground. When these waves encounter a change in what scientists call dielectric constant, basically a change in material density, like hitting an air pocket inside masonry after traveling through solid rock, part of that wave reflects back to the surface. By analyzing these reflected echoes, GPR can create a subsurface image. It's like sonar, but for the ground. Now, the 2025 team, aiming for maximum depth, used a lower frequency of 80 megahertz. Lower frequencies penetrate deeper, which sounds great, right? But there's a trade-off. Lower frequencies also mean lower resolution. For an 80 megahertz wave, your resolution is roughly 1.5 meters. Think about what that means in practical terms. A corridor, to even reliably register as a distinct feature, would need to be wider than a city bus. A typical ancient Egyptian passageway, often only a meter or so wide, might simply be missed or appear as an indistinct anomaly. So, here's the potential problem. Thin walls, house-sized rooms, or delicate mud brick shrines, structures that might actually make up an ancient city, could easily sit down there, completely undetected or misidentified by this particular frequency. Instead, the software, in its attempt to make sense of scattered echoes, might stitch together these ambiguous signals into something that looks like a massive, ordered megastructure. It's like trying to discern intricate patterns on a tapestry from a mile away. You might see a grand design that isn't really there. Now, add the AI interpolation layer. If that AI was indeed trained on known temple blueprints or standard ancient urban layouts, as some skeptics suggest, you have a perfect recipe for what we call seeing what you want to see. The AI, applying its learned patterns, could easily fill in the gaps, connecting disparate signals into a coherent, colossal order where perhaps only a series of natural fissures, ancient quarrying operations, or even just storage magazines exist. In short, GPR is an incredibly powerful flashlight, illuminating the darkness beneath our feet. But a flashlight, especially a low-resolution one, can cast shadows that look tantalizingly like doorways, inviting us to believe in grand structures that might only exist in the interpretation, not in the rock itself. It's a compelling technological illusion, and understanding its limitations is key to separating fact from digital fantasy. Section 7. The Dig Dilemma. Here's where the real scandal, the deeply uncomfortable truth, actually lies. Nobody, and I mean times nobody asterisk, is rushing to sink a shaft into the Giza plateau. Not a single soul is clamoring to grab a shovel and start digging. And why? Because Giza isn't just a tourist attraction, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a place of unparalleled global significance, with strict regulations and an even stricter buffer zone. One misplaced borehole, one ill-advised dig, and you risk far more than just a ruined selfie spot. You risk cracking the very plateau that holds up the only surviving wonder of the ancient world. Imagine the structural integrity, the delicate balance that has kept these colossal stones standing for millennia. A single seismic shock from poorly executed excavation could cause irreparable damage. The thought alone sends shivers down the spine of any conservator. Getting permits for any kind of significant work here is an absolute bureaucratic nightmare. You don't just need local approval. You need UNESCO sign-off, the blessing of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, and a budget that would make most small nations blush. We're talking north of $5 million just to insure against subsidence. Never mind the actual excavation costs. It's an exercise in patience, diplomacy, and deep pockets. And then there's the elephant in the room, Egypt's tourism industry. It's a vital part of the national economy, and it's already been wobbling for years, impacted by global events and regional instability. The last thing it needs, the absolute times last times thing, is headlines screaming, "Pyramid danger," or "Giza plateau cracking." That would be a catastrophic blow. They fear that kind of negative publicity, far more than they crave the potentially fleeting excitement of a new discovery. For officials, the safest, most politically expedient move is to demand more scans, more models, more conferences, more peer reviews. Anything, absolutely anything, that postpones the moment a shovel might actually break ground. It's a classic case of risk aversion trumping scientific curiosity, and in this context, it's entirely understandable, if frustrating for those seeking answers. The dilemma is real. Protect the known wonders, or risk them for the chance of discovering something new. Section 8. What would settle it? So, if all this radar and AI wizardry isn't enough, what times would finally settle the debate? What would unequivocally prove or disprove the existence of this alleged underground city? For archaeologists, the answer is surprisingly simple, almost brutally so. A 5-centimeter diameter core sample drilled into the biggest anomaly. No grand excavation, no massive earthworks, just a small, precise core. Imagine it, a tiny cylindrical sample of whatever lies beneath. Pull up a chunk of rock, or masonry, or even an ancient artifact, and then you can really get to work. Date it with optically stimulated luminescence, OSL, a technique that can tell you when the sediment or rock was last exposed to light. If that core sample comes back 4,500 years old and shows signs of human modification, well, then it's game on. We rewrite textbooks, we commission documentaries, and the world goes wild. If, however, it turns out to be natural limestone, just more of the Giza bedrock, then case closed. The mystery, at least in this iteration, would be solved. But here's the rub, and it's a massive one. Core drills, even small ones, leave a permanent scar. Conservationists, those dedicated guardians of our shared heritage, see it as an act of irreversible damage. They compare it, quite dramatically, to punching a hole through the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. It's a permanent alteration to a pristine, ancient landscape. The Giza Plateau, in its undisturbed state, is considered an archaeological artifact in itself. To mar it, even minimally, is a decision fraught with ethical and historical implications. So, the standoff continues. The radar team, understandably frustrated, says, "We've shown you the map, we've given you the blueprint," and the skeptics, equally entrenched, retort with a medical analogy. X-rays aren't proof of surgery. You need to open them up to know for sure. Both camps retreat to their corners, armed with compelling arguments, while the alleged city remains tantalizingly out of reach, a ghost beneath the sand. It's a stalemate born of caution, bureaucracy, and the immense weight of history. Section 9. The money factor. Let's not be naive. In any grand endeavor, especially one involving ancient wonders, money talks. And sometimes, it screams. The 2025 project, the one that sparked this whole incredible saga, initially raised a respectable €1.2 million from a European Union digital heritage grant. That's a decent chunk of change for exploratory scanning and data analysis. But if this project were to proceed to actual excavation, if shovels were to hit the dirt, that budget wouldn't just increase, it would balloon. We're talking a jump to at least 12 million euros, potentially far more. A significant portion of that would go into equipment rental, specialized machinery, environmental controls, safety gear, and crucially, security. Protecting such a site and the potential treasures within is no small feat. This is where figures like Zahi Hawass, the flamboyant and often controversial former Minister of Antiquities, enter the conversation. He's a showman, yes, but he also understands the realities of large-scale archaeology. He famously told an Italian channel, with a characteristic flourish, "Heritage is not a casino." His point was sharp. Funders, especially private ones, want guarantees of a blockbuster find. They want the next Tutankhamun's tomb, the kind of discovery that generates headlines and tourist dollars. But science, particularly archaeology, offers no such guarantees. You could spend millions and find nothing but bedrock. It's a gamble, and most scientific institutions are wary of such high-stakes bets. Meanwhile, private sponsors, ever opportunistic, are circling like vultures. There were whispers, credible whispers, that a UAE resort consortium reportedly offered to underwrite half the dig. But there was a catch, of course. They wanted exclusive VR theme park rights. Imagine a virtual reality experience of the Giza underworld, available only through their Times resorts. For many critics, this isn't about pure research. It smells suspiciously like a land grab dressed up as scientific endeavor. It's the commodification of history, turning ancient wonders into corporate assets. This kind of commercial entanglement, with its potential for exploitation and dubious motives, gives government ministries yet another powerful reason to hit the pause button, to proceed with extreme caution, or simply to let the whole thing fade away. The money factor adds a layer of complexity and cynicism to an already tangled web of science, politics, and ancient secrets. Section 10. The clock is ticking. Beyond the politics, the budgets, and the scientific debates, there's a far more insidious, silent threat lurking beneath the Giza plateau, time itself. Groundwater rise from neighboring farmland, a relentless and often overlooked consequence of modern irrigation, is slowly but surely seeping under the ancient bedrock. Conservators, those unsung heroes who battle against the slow decay of history, predict major salt damage within the next 20 years. Think about what that means. If there truly is a buried city down there, a perfectly preserved metropolis, every single year we wait means painted plaster flakes off walls, turning vibrant ancient murals into dust. Papyri, those fragile scrolls holding untold stories, turn to mush, their ink dissolving into illegible stains. Wooden boats, perhaps like Khufu's famous solar barge, rot to soup, losing their form and structure to the relentless damp. We're not just talking about losing artifacts. We're talking about the complete obliteration of historical data, of tangible connections to a forgotten past. So, the scandal cuts both ways, creating a cruel paradox. Rush in, and we might, in our haste and with our heavy machinery, inadvertently wreck a wonder, causing irreversible damage to an incredibly fragile environment. Wait forever, endlessly debating permits and pixels, and any secrets down there could simply dissolve to sludge, lost forever to the encroaching groundwater. It's a race against time, a ticking clock that adds a profound urgency to the entire situation. This environmental imperative is precisely why the normally calm, measured world of Egyptology, a field accustomed to centuries of slow, meticulous work, now sounds less like a scholarly discussion and more like the frantic, polarized debates of modern-day Twitter politics. The stakes aren't just academic anymore. They're existential for whatever might lie hidden. Section 11. Personal take. I've walked those sands at dawn, many times. There's something utterly timeless about Giza, a quiet majesty that makes the pyramids feel almost indestructible, like they'll stand forever, impervious to everything. But lean in close. Look at the lowest blocks, and you'll see the truth. Tiny salt crystals freckling the ancient stone, a testament to the slow, relentless creep of moisture and decay. The idea that an entire metropolis, a sprawling, complex city, could lie beneath our boots, unseen for millennia, and still stay hidden, Sounds almost absurd, doesn't it? Like something out of a fantasy novel. Until, that is, you remember that we, as a species, somehow managed to misplace 30,000-ton battleships on the Pacific seafloor for decades, only to stumble upon them by accident. Or that entire ancient cities, like Petra, were lost to the Western world for centuries. Absence of evidence, as the saying goes, is not evidence of absence. Just because we haven't seen it with our own eyes doesn't mean it isn't there. But, and this is a crucial but, extraordinary claims still demand extraordinary proof. And right now what we have are stunning, tantalizing pixels on a screen, juxtaposed with a deafening, almost oppressive silence that, to me, smells distinctly of fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of the implications, fear of the cost, fear of the controversy. That's not science. That's a cliffhanger. It's a story paused at its most agonizing moment, and we, the curious public, the armchair archaeologists, the history buffs, are all stuck here, collectively waiting for season 2. We're left to wonder if the curtain will ever truly rise on what might be the greatest archaeological drama of our time, or if this particular episode will simply fade into legend, another tantalizing what-if forever buried beneath the sands of Giza, both literally and figuratively. Call to action. So, what do you think we should do? Do we push for the drill, risking a permanent scar on a world wonder for the sake of definitive proof? Do we demand more scans, more models, more technological wizardry, hoping for a clearer picture without disturbing the ground? Or do we simply leave the plateau untouched, allowing its secrets to remain just that, secrets, perhaps forever, perhaps until the groundwater takes them? Drop your vote in the comments below. Let us know your thoughts. And hey, if you want updates the moment new data leaks, or if this kind of mystery